Pop quiz. When does Love Live take place? The 2010s, you're probably saying. That's when the actual project happened, and that's when the anime premiered. Although, if you want to be exact, 2013 is the year the anime premiered. Either way, the technology and setting match up to the 2010s, so it's okay if we're slightly off. Muse makes their debut, takes over the world, yada yada. Now here's the next question. When does Love Live Sunshine take place? Well, obviously after Muse. The entire story is based on Muse's legacy and creating your own story from it. No matter what year you place it in, it obviously takes place after the original Love Live series. Now here's something else. When does Nijigasaki take place? After Sunshine is probably what you're saying. But do you actually have any evidence to support that statement? What actually tells you in the story itself that takes place after Muse and Aqua? It could be an entirely different universe we're looking at right now. Nothing is telling us otherwise. Matter of fact, when does Superstar take place? When does Hasunosora take place? When does the musical take place? Love Life has never really been consistent with its continuity. You aren't gonna watch Superstar and see Muse have a cameo appearance like it's a Marvel movie. These things are pretty separate. And obviously, the placement and timeline of these seasons don't really matter in the grand scheme. The most important aspects of the stories contained in the series and what they try to do. It's not a deal breaker, and it by no means makes the other series bad because they don't reference the past or anything like that. I'm only making this disclaimer because 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the Love Life continuity is fucked, and let's spend some time figuring out whether they're Scott Cawthon or Toby Fox. I hope someone knows what I mean by that. If you're a Love Live fan, old or new, you know what Muse is. They're iconic both in real life and in lore, and those watching the series via the anime might have been confused as they watched the later seasons. Despite being a direct continuation, Sunshine doesn't directly show Muse besides flashbacks. It's mostly the spirit of Muse that's involved in Sunshine, which fits with the message they're going for. Either way though, it was a sequel, even if it didn't have any members from Muse in it. Shift over to Nijigasaki, and you can start to see something's off, and I'm not just talking about the art style. It seems as if we're in a different world. Muse nor Aqua aren't mentioned at all, and the whole Love Live contest that's a big part of Muse and Aqua's story only gets mentioned a few times with no fanfare. To anyone who watched School Idol Project and Sunshine, it probably must have felt pretty alienating. There was barely any connecting tissues between the series, with the only common things being school idols and the fact it's called Love Life. Move on to Superstar, and again it's the same predicament. It's like a whole new world with only a few connecting elements. What's going on here? This series is incredibly huge with multiple groups, but for some reason they don't seem to acknowledge them, like every group is in their own pocket dimension. Now, before we start doing some shit that'll definitely put me in a mental asylum, let's explain why this is logically the case. Firstly, the series is meant to advertise their group. At the core of each season, they're intended to make you care for these characters and have your full attention on them. Constantly reminding them of the past and having a battle with previous groups for your attention will not do anyone any favors. Aqua had a really serious issue with this, in which by having Muse part of the narrative, it put Aqua in their shadow, even if it was the point of the season. It came down to the intentions not mattering when the consequences were more apparent, and you can tell they learned from this mistake with Nijigasaki, which almost disconnects from everything Love Live before. It's completely its own individual, and I think that's for the best, as it allows the audience to get invested in these characters without thinking about the past. I talked to some of my friends about why Love Live isn't as connected, and they all had different but understandable reasons. Alpharia, quote, combination of not wanting to toot its own horn from yeah, remember Muse? Fuck yeah! And Mimo diving into how if everything was actually connected in Love Life, the rules regarding who can be a school idol would actually be so fucked. And Amaranth went for a more mystical reason, detailing it from a musical point of view, where reality isn't the center focus, and anyone who watched the series knows what he means. I guess another logical reason is that it just doesn't make sense from a story viewpoint. Aqua gets a pass, but imagine if every group's story was, man, Aqua inspired me to become a school idol. Man, Nijigasaki inspired me to become a school idol. Yeah, you see what I mean, that's probably for the best. That's not to say there isn't cool opportunities for Muse and other past groups to make a cameo appearance. God knows I would love if like a member from Muse or Aqua made a short appearance in Superstar to maybe talk to Khan on, tell her how they're happy that School Idol still exists even after all this time, and that they used to be one. Fuck, man. Love Life is a series that's primarily connected with its fans, so having a separate sort of pocket chamber for each group could make them feel disconnected in terms of the bigger picture. But that doesn't mean there aren't ways to retain that bond. You don't have to have all the Love Life universe connected to make fans happy. You can do other things to make them feel noticed, but that's not the point of this video. We're here to talk about the timeline. So what do we focus on? Here's what I mean. This is Hanukkah. This is Hanukkah. This is also Hanukkah. These are not the same person. They look the same, they may act the same, but there are slight differences that change who they are in the bigger picture. Either it be the events they go through or just different likes and dislikes. The thing with Love Life is that things change over time, and this includes how the series wants characters to be portrayed. A very obvious one is the art style. Characters used to look like this, now they look like this. It's a really good coincidence that when the art style changed, everything also changed. When the anime came out, it created the canonized version of these characters that almost 90% of Love Live fans knew and grew up with. All of the traits you associate with these characters probably come from the anime, but what many neglect was that Love Life was very experimental back then with what traits they assigned certain characters. Some things stuck, some things didn't, and they soon finalized on what each character was going to be later on. Logically, that makes sense, but in lore, that's when things get complicated. Do we treat these two versions of the characters the same? Certain catchphrases and clothing were changed in the transition to the anime, with Hanyo and Umi being prime examples. I know it doesn't matter in the grand scheme, but I'm reaching for this video. Most importantly though, do we treat when these two versions of the characters are the same? Love Life the project started in 2010, while Love Life Squad the project the anime premiered in 2013. That is a 3-year gap, and members of Muse all would have graduated by that point since it takes 3 years for them to graduate. Or maybe even though it premiered in 2013, it actually takes place in 2010? I don't know. You could probably explain it logically, but unfortunately we're throwing logic out the window for this video. Am I to believe Muse did Snow Elation in 2012 and again in 2014 in season 2 of the anime? Fuck no. Different universe. Listen, this is how funky it is. Do we count the magazines as canon? Are these canon or in their own universe? What about the manga? The manga actually predates the anime, but has conflicting events, so what the fuck? Also, Rin and Hanyo get together, but is that canon or only in the manga? We're getting into Undertale Deltarune territory when it first shadow dropped in 2018. Parallel universes that are very similar, yet have slight differences so that it can't perfectly fit together without fully separating them. Or you know, you can do your best to mash everything together, but fuck that. School Idol Festival though is no doubt in its own universe. All of the groups exist at the same time, and I think that speaks volumes. I don't even want to think about incorporating this into the bigger part of the video because what do you want me to say? This is literally a Hyrule Warrior situation where everything is combined as one happy family. Oh hey Nijigasaki, you wanna know the continuity of this experiment project? I've said it once and I'll say it again. Love Life Nijigasaki was heavily experimented on. This started even from its conception. You had characters from SIF who originally debuted in 2013 who all came from different schools. They were all brought over to Nijigasaki and they had many traits changed. So are they the same character? I don't know. Probably not. Also because it doesn't fit with the timeline. If they're still high schools in 2013 when the Nijigasaki project started in 2017, that means they should have graduated. But that's if Nijigasaki takes place in 2017 and if the characters from SIF debuted in a different year that wasn't 2013. Confused? We aren't done yet. Many of the Nijigasaki characters didn't have fully defined traits yet, and you can tell with the comics where there were many experimental decisions done. Aimu is a very obvious one, and she's a lot more insane. Because of Love Life's anthology setup, there isn't really a cohesive plot until an anime drops where events are actually laid out. Nijigasaki, however, was the first group to really establish its own continuity before it got an anime. All Stars had a full story focused on the Nijigasaki cast, and when you look back before Niji, everything was pretty connected. Muse and Aqua were directly linked, and everything was going swell, but Nijigasaki had an issue. Characters were already established with their lore, and Aqua and Muse were a big part of Nijigasaki's story, so it resulted in an anime season that couldn't one-for-one replicate All Stars. So it created an alternate universe, one seemingly separate from the main Love Life continuity. The Nijigasaki cast in the anime are not the same as the ones in All Stars. People point to Lonzu and Shiriko for the major differences, and while they are true, even for other characters, the events they go through and the traits they once had have been slightly altered. Rina in All Stars starts off with the Rina board already equipped, and her journey is actually learned to not use it, while the anime version is the complete opposite. These kinds of differences are just enough to separate to the point you legally cannot say they're the same. With the Nijigasaki visual novel that came out, which takes place in the All-Stars universe, it's made even more apparent. That's why we aren't talking about these universes. They exist, but for the sake of this video, we're going to talk strictly about the anime universe. And Hasunosora. And Bluebird, fuck the series. You know Muse, I know Muse, everyone knows Muse, 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 Muse. They start out, become famous, and then die, with their legacy being spread on. That much is clear cut. The only important thing we should note is that the Love Life competition already exists at this point, as it serves as the focal point for majority of the Love Life groups. I was originally just gonna say a bunch of bullshit for this video, but after writing half of the script, I realized there were some genuine timeline attempts, so here's some of them because I do say a few similar points to them. Following the death of Muse, we go to Sunshine, where Chika becomes inspired by Muse and forms Aqua. This one is also pretty set in stone. It takes place after Muse, and we actually know how long it takes place. In episode 4 of season 1, Hanamaru has a magazine with a cover saying Love Life 5th Anniversary Edition, implying that Sunshine takes place 5 years after School Idol Project. Note that while multiple Love Lives happen a year, anniversary is specified in terms of years of how long it's been around. Now you could easily say that this is an old magazine, and it could realistically be 6 years after Muse, or 7 years, or anything above 5. And while that could be true, this is my video so we're going with it. The 5-year time skip makes it so no matter where we place Muse, Aqua must take place 5 years after that. So it doesn't really matter if we place the events of School Idol Project in 2010 or 2013 or anything in between, because no matter what, they keep the same distance. Placing the exact time though does get a bit tricky because while the anime premiered in 2016, Aqua was revealed first in 2015, which does match up to 2010 when Love Live first started, but not when School Idol Project premiered, which was in 2013. If we go by 2010, that means we're counting the magazines as canon. Or we could say fuck when the anime premieres, the timeline matches to when the magazines were released while still maintaining the anime events, in which case Muse is in 2010 and Aqua is in 2015. However, there is one big error with what I just said, and it happens in episode 1 of Sunshine, and this one actually made me rearrange the script. In a flashback, we see Chika when she first discovers Muse, and she's wearing a first year ribbon, implying that this takes place 1 year ago, and if we take into account our timeline, that means this must take place in 2014. In this scene, Chika sees a monitor broadcasting the second Love Live winners, showing Muse. Now here's where the tricky part happens. Is this a live broadcast or a delayed viewing of some kind? The way it's visually shown implies it's a live broadcast because it creates anticipation for the second Love Live winner. If this is a live broadcast, this completely fucks with the timeline because at this point, Muse should be dead. With the 5th anniversary magazine, no matter what, Aqua takes place long after Muse disbanded, so how does this scene occur? Is this a delayed viewing, a rerun of some kind? By having Chika in her first year ribbon, this implies that no matter what, this scene takes place at least 1 year before the events of Love Live Sunshine. Either way, this timeline doesn't match. This monitor breaks Love Live Sunshine just for a really cool moment for Chika to first learn what Muse was. What makes this even more fucked is that the performance that's shown on the monitor is their start dash performance at their school, but that's not what they did for the second Love Live, which is what the monitor showed. They performed Bokuda wa Ima no Nakade, and these two flashback scenes are seconds apart in canon, so what the fuck? Okay, let's move on before I lose my balls. Let's pretend this is some sort of delayed viewing, and whoever got hired to manage what was put on that screen got fired. Everything fits nice and easy together into a seamless timeline. And then Nijigasaki happens. So when does the Niji anime take place? You're thinking after Muse and Aqua, obviously, right? But what tells you that? Is there any event that tells you explicitly that's where it takes place? Nijigasaki has a very different structure compared to previous seasons, electing to focus more so on the individual members and not on an overarching competition such as Love Live. In fact, Love Live rarely gets mentioned, only by name on a few occasions. It's not a big deal, and why is that the case? Well, since we don't know when Nijigasaki takes place, we can come up with some amazing reasons. Maybe Nijigasaki takes place during the events of School Idol Project, or right before the big boom Muse had, which caused so many school idols to be like them. Maybe it takes place really far in the future to the point Love Live isn't really a big deal. That's what I initially thought, as season 1 is pretty self-contained with barely any references to the other series. In fact, most of the references in Nijigasaki are towards All-Stars and other aspects of Nijigasaki before the anime, which is talked about more in my Nijigasaki fan-based video. Season 2 continues the trend of referencing old Nijigasaki aspects, God rest All-Star Soul, but it has one scene that gives one clue to where Nijigasaki takes place. In season 2, episode 5, you, Shizuku, and Aimu go to the School Idol Memorial where they see what is that? That looks familiar. And that looks familiar too. This single scene establishes that this must take place after Muse and Aqua. And while that is true, I think we can go even further. But what I want you to do is take this scene and put it in your pocket, because I'm going to use it to literally blow your mind later on, but let's continue. Nijigasaki doesn't have that many direct references to the past, so I'm going to skim over them for now. But who knows, maybe the movie will reference them, so let's move over to Superstar, where things are a lot more defined. Superstar went back to basics, focusing on Love Live, shifting the art style to that really unique hair shading, and being composed by the same person who did School Idol Project soundtrack. It's matching a lot of checkboxes here, and alongside that, we have actual and connecting lore. Now, while we get subtle visual references to the past, there is one key character that connected to the main series. And it's this girl. Does she look familiar? Yeah, that's what I thought. This announcer girl appears in School Idol Project, Sunshine, and Superstar, connecting all 3 series. Damn, she's been doing the School Idol gig for over 5+ years. I respect the dedication. With this in mind, Superstar definitely takes place after Sunshine, which takes place after School Idol Project. Superstar is very unique though in how time passes in its seasons. Compared to Muse or Aqua or Nijigasaki, where their seasons have their time slowed down to the 2nd season or so, where it's revealed the 3rd year's gonna graduate. Oh no! Superstar has it so each year represents a school year, and since the group starts out with only first years, it allows for actual time to progress as we see them go up a year each season. So we know for a fact Superstar takes place over 3 years, having the biggest time span we've seen so far in Love Live. At least, it used to. You see, while Liella was spending their 3 years being school idols, there was another group that got established during this time, and it makes the timeline very interesting. Meet Hasunosora, the real-time Love Live series. Yes, real-time. As in, this series is happening as I speak. Right now. Timeline-wise. right now. When the project officially started in 2023, it took place in 2023. As the year went around to 2024, the students went up a year and also took place in 2024. And we are currently in 2025, and the third years that were around in 2024 graduated a couple months ago and are gone from the story. Now this by itself is completely okay. I've praised how realistic it is and how in-depth the concept is in relation to school idols. But here's where the juicy part comes in. Hasunosora heavily implies the existence of Muse via Koze, who became a school idol to follow in their footsteps. They don't directly mention the group by name, but they constantly allude to it, talking about a girl who saved their school by being a school idol, and there's only one honk she could be referring to. We even get a direct flashback to when she first discovered Muse, when she was just a young child. Now let's do some math. The scene you're seeing right here takes place in 2023. We know that because it was released during that time. Koze is a second year student, meaning she's around 16 to 17 years old. I asked my friend Alex, who's the biggest Hasunosora fan and has only a slightly unhealthy obsession with Koze, his thoughts on how old Koze was in this flashback, and he guessed 7 to 8. Doing the math, that must mean this scene takes place either 2013 or 2014, which actually lines up with the anime release date for School Idol Project. Since Hasunosora is our only clear indicator of an actual year, this places Muse in 2013 instead of 2010 when Love Live the project first started. I know I'm being inconsistent with my rules, but come on, just follow me. If this is the case, Muse debuts in 2013, dies, and then 5 years later in 2018, Aqua starts, even though the anime premiered in 2016. Or you know, maybe Koze saw Muse after they died, which could push Muse back to 2010 and return Aqua to 2015. Either way, the timeline matches up with a few explanations. Not everyone got into Muse when they were alive. Some of us saw them after they died via delayed viewings or I don't know, YouTube videos. Nothing really directly conflicts besides Nijigasaki, but just wait, it's gonna be huge. There is one more piece of evidence I want to show, and you might think it conflicts with the timeline, but it can still fit. And I did not find this by myself. I saw someone on Twitter talking about it, so here's their tag. Thank you, Ikado, if you're seeing this. Basically, in episode 1, part 2, while Kaho is going for a magazine, she sees something. A silhouette that looks oddly similar to it's Ren from Liella. It's literally her. Now, why is Ren in this magazine? If Hasunosora takes place in real time, and this episode was released in 2023, that means this takes place in 2023. Ikado goes more in depth with this idea, stating that since Hasunosora is in real time, that means Hasunosora must have existed in 2022, with Koze and the second years being a good example since we get flashbacks to when they were in their first year. Koze and the other second years, or first years at the time, had to drop out of Love Live due to Megumi's injury, with Ikado stating that we probably know who won Love Live that year, and it was probably Liella. Why? Well, what else was going on in 2022? Love Live Superstar Season 2. We officially have somewhat recorded events of 2 Love Live groups coexisting in the Love Live universe. If we are to assume that like Hasunosora, it takes place the year it comes out, then that means Liella started in 2021, since Superstar Season 1 premiered in 2021. And since each season goes up a year, it makes it easier to follow. That means Superstar Season 2 takes place in 2022, and Superstar Season 3 takes place in 2023. Now, even though Season 3 technically came out in 2024, it still takes place a year after Season 2, making it take place in 2023. Thank you, Ikado, for pointing this out. I genuinely couldn't have done it without you. And it turns out other people have noticed this as well, which is really neat. If we are to go by this logic though, that means we have a pretty clear timeline here. It gets even neater as we continue on to the events of Hasunosora and Liella. Hasunosora in 2023 enters Love Life and fails, with Liella also entering Love Life in 2023 and winning, making perfect sense. Then in 2024, Liella is supposedly gone or doesn't enter Love Life, with Hasunosora during the whole thing with Ceres and Izumi and winning Love Life. Makes perfect sense. Wait a second. What is that? Is that a flag? That flag looks almost exactly the same as Aqua when they won Love Live. Wait, it is the same. Wait, rewind the footage. How do we know the flag in Nijigasaki Season 2 is Aqua's? For all we know, that could be Hasunosora's. And if they're reusing trophies, who's to say this is actually Muse? We see how big this room is. This could easily contain information on Liella or Hasunosora or any other future group. Because of Hasunosora winning Love Life, Nijigasaki has now been put into a limbo state, where it could take place after Muse and Aqua, or after every other group. Nijigasaki really is the black sheep of the series. It's different in so many ways, and it can't even fit into the timeline correctly. What a disgrace. Because of this scene, Nijigasaki is unable to be placed anywhere as of right now. You know, I had this idea for the timeline video back in March, and everything seemed solid. Everything had a place, sort of. Then Bluebird happened, and things got fucked up. Bluebird, like Hasunosora, is a real-time Love Life series, and that I mean they're active on Twitter right now. They're literally discussing their life right now and what they're doing, which means Bluebird takes place in 2025. But Hasunosora is also real-time, which means they also take place in 2025, meaning they take place at the same time. Doesn't make sense so far? Good, because it's about to not. The synopsis of Bluebird is that school idols once were abundant and around, and that there used to be a competition called Love Life that school idols would participate in, but that is no longer the case. Wait, that doesn't hold up. That does not make sense. How are both Hasunosora and Bluebird both taking place in real time at the same time, with one saying that love life no longer exists or isn't relevant anymore? I saw someone talking about one of the Bluebird's tweets about how they referenced something that happened in real life a couple weeks ago, implying that this does take place in 2025. What's happening here? Now obviously, logically, the lore doesn't matter, but for the sake of this video, let's actually take this 100% seriously. This breaks love life. Bluebird will be focusing on school idols, but it's set in a world where school idols no longer exist. That contradicts Hasunosora, but also Nijigasaki, because we still aren't sure where it takes place. It could take place before, but it could also take place after Bluebird, where school idols rise back up, maybe explaining why the memorial building even exists. What makes this more difficult, however, is that if this was the only lore we got, then I would very easily say, fuck it, different universe! But there's one issue. Muse and Aqua exist in this world. We've gotten explicit references to Muse, Aqua, and even Umi Tsunoda, telling us that this is in fact the world of love life. So what could possibly explain Hasunosora and Bluebird both being alive at the same time, with one of them having love life be gone? Stay with me here. Schrodinger's cat. Please give me this moment. For those unaware, Schrodinger's cat refers to an experiment where a box is placed over a cat with a poison that has a 50% chance of activating. We can't hear the cat, we can't see the cat if it touches the box or something. Basically, we won't know if the cat is dead until we open the box. So until that moment arrives, the cat is both alive and dead. That's how the theory/experiment goes anyway. I've gone into a lot of games and shows that delve into this subject, with two I want to talk about: Zero Escape and Red vs. Blue. Spoilers for those series, of course. Zero Escape is all about these kinds of make you think situations. There are so many scenes where both things technically happen, and because of how the game is structured, everything is true. With the power of shifting, which is basically mentally transferring your consciousness to different yous in different times, these possibilities are real. A character can both be dead and alive at the same time. Someone's in an armor suit. It can both be someone and someone else at the same time. Two things that exist together that shouldn't be possible. Sound familiar? Let's move on to Red vs. Blue. In Season 15, Agent Washington is shot in the neck, giving him brain damage and rendering him mentally unstable for the rest of the series. In Season 16, a paradox occurs regarding Agent Washington. The Reds and Blues attempted to time travel to save Washington, but by doing so, they render time in chaos. Donut, who has the ability to shift his mind to himself at different points of time, aka literally the exact same ability as in Zero Escape, is able to go past the paradox into a time where Agent Washington is stuck between two existences. One where he wasn't shot in the neck and got brain damage, and one where he was. Two things that coexist despite it not being possible. With this in mind, the only way this could happen in love life is for something to happen before the events of Hasunosora and before Bluebird. If we use Red vs. Blue as an example, if the paradox occurs at a certain point and we simply travel after the paradox, then it hasn't been decided which reality we're in yet. We don't know if we're in a reality where love life is gone or love life is still around, so they both exist. We need an event that occurs that splits reality into two possibilities while still being in the same universe. Looking at the timeline, Liella and Hasunosora have something to do with this. If Bluebird states it like their ancient history, that means love life must have been dead for a couple of years to the point no one knows what they are anymore. Superstar Season 1 takes place in 2021. Hasunosora takes place in 2023. But the School Idol Club in Hasunosora has been around for years. It goes back to 2022 with Koze and the others, but it goes even further back to 2021. Why? Sachi. Sachi attended Hasunosora in 2021, making her the earliest contender for what happened to cause Bluebird. A big part of her character is trying to save the School Idol Club, recruiting anyone she can. In 2022, she's able to recruit Koze and the others to the club. But what if she wasn't able to? What if they didn't exist? Then the School Idol Club in Hasunosora would quite literally go extinct. And if we switch locations, what if Liella never formed in Superstar? What if Kanon actually left in episode 1 and Cuckoo gave up? What if Sunny Passion died? This would create a gateway to the events we see in Bluebird. And for those saying 4 to 5 years and no love life isn't that long, do you remember the I wanna be like you TikTok trend? Yeah, that was 5 years ago. I bet you barely remember anything about that. With how social media in the world is now, things can lose relevance incredibly fast, just moving on to the next big thing. I mean, Sunshine proves it partially. Muse came and went, and Rico, who attended the school Muse went to, barely recognized them. That's my totally a foolproof reason. Please don't debunk it, just go along with the video. Now, what causes a paradox is usually time travel shenanigans. Zero Escape has it, Red vs. Blue has it, so who time traveled to cause the paradoxes in love life that create two different universes? Well, to love life fans, this should be pretty obvious. There's only one character in the series that has shown any solid evidence of being able to time travel, and it's the one who started it all. Hanukkah. She's the only one who's shown actual evidence of this, both being a child in Aqua and as an adult in the School Idol movie. Don't fight me, you know for a fact this is her. We know for a fact future Hanukkah is a physical being, as people clap for her singing, so she's not some sort of ghost or spirit. She's a physical entity. The time she disappears from Hanukkah when others arrive can easily just be her time traveling away. But if that's the case, why would she do this? Create two realities that coexist at the same time like a paradox? One answer. Nijigasaki. You know how vague I've been talking about Nijigasaki in the timeline? It doesn't fit, but maybe there's a reason it doesn't fit. It's the original anomaly. From its start, it didn't fit, and that's why Hanuka split reality. She saw that Nijigasaki was in limbo, it didn't fit, so she needed to find a way to make it fit. By splitting the reality of Love Life, she created multiple opportunities for Nijigasaki to fit into the timeline, one where Love Life is still around, and one where Love Life is no longer around. It's a failsafe. With Bluebird coming out, it implies they're going to be the ones to revive school idols, creating two realities where school idols eventually do exist, allowing Nijigasaki to fit into either one. By time traveling and doing some weird strong theory cat situations, Hanuka manipulates situations where a paradox would form but exist at the same time. Something like a parallel world that's right next to you but on a different plane of existence. Two realities in the exact same spot. But that begs the question, how did Nijigasaki become an anomaly? Well, it's simple. Nijigasaki has many continuities, different universes with the same characters but slightly different. The earliest universe that we know of though are the comics. The Nijigasaki cast split into three, with each of them getting their own comic storyline. And the one we want to focus on is Aimu, Ai, and Rina. In that comic, the school idol god exists, which raises many questions on the powers the god can have. Aimu asks to become a full-fledged school idol, but the god says it can't do that, and then asks Aimu if she's getting a new Pokemon, to which Aimu says she is. Now it's established that the school idol god isn't that powerful, but let's take things into account. Nozomi exists in this universe, as she helps cleanse Aimu of being evil. At the end of the 4 Coma comics, Aimu gets sent to Mars by the government and gets sucked to a sandstorm, and it ends on a cliffhanger. Where am I going with this? I don't know. Aimu probably would have died in that sandstorm, and if she did, what would Ai and Rina do? Well, it's been established that Ai told Aimu of the school idol god, so the only option Ai and Rina would have is to go to the school idol god and beg for Aimu to be revived. Now, I already stated that the school idol god isn't that powerful, but she kinda liked Aimu because they both like Pokemon, so she makes an exception. She decides to resurrect Aimu, but at the cost of resetting the universe Mario Galaxy style. And this creates the all-star universe where everyone coexists. But in the process of doing so, maybe they were playing Pokemon and took some inspiration from the dual versions, they created another universe, one without Muse and Aqua. Remember Nozomi and how she was in the comic canon? That heavily implied that at least Muse was canon in the Nijigasaki universe. But because of the universe reset, Nijigasaki is now in the world with no Muse or Aqua for that matter. For All-Stars, they got lucky because their universe got put into a world where Aqua and Muse both coexisted, so there was no problem there. So the only problem was the anime universe, being completely separate from everything else. It's been heavily theorized that Hanuka is a god because of the power she showcases in the series. So it's not that far-fetched to assume that seeing the actions of another god take place would leave her concerned. Something being in limbo and not fitting in time is dangerous, so the only thing she can do is ensure that it fits in no matter what, creating the split realities that we see here. Nijigasaki is special for this reason, being completely separate from anything else, protected in a certain way. As of the time of recording, Nijigasaki is still in its own realm, protected by Setsuna and her magical powers. But hey, that's just a theory, a noodle theory! Thanks for watching. What about the musical? Bro, get out!